All right, so you want to pack on some serious muscle, right? And you want to do it fast, we get it.
Who doesn't?
Exactly.
Hey.
So we dug into 3 awesome articles from Nerd Fitness, Strong Lifts, and Strength Log, all about maximizing muscle growth, but naturally. No crazy shortcuts here, just real strategies backed by science.
It's about cutting through the noise, and I think these articles do a great job of that.
Totally. And one thing that jumps out right away, all 3 sources agree on this. You've got to have a solid foundation.
Yeah, you can't build a skyscraper on sand.
Exactly.
Consistency is king when it comes to building muscle, and Nerd Fitness really highlights how important those early gains are. You know, they talk about how
Noob gains.
noob gains.
Right.
You can put on a solid 15 to 20 pounds of muscle in your first year if you do things right.
That's incredible. So if someone's just starting out, like, there's real hope. You can see significant results.
Absolutely. It's motivating, right?
Huge motivator. But they also emphasize that, this super fast rate, it won't last forever, will it?
Right, and Strong Lifts talks about this. It brings up the role genetics plays in all of this, and we all have different potential. So comparing yourself to the genetically gifted guy at the gym, it's just a recipe for frustration.
Yeah, you're just setting yourself up for failure if you're comparing yourself constantly.
Right, focus on you. Celebrate your progress.
Love that. So focus on the journey, not just the destination.
100%.
Now, we're being consistent with our workouts, but what about the workouts themselves? How do we make those as effective as possible?
Well, these articles go beyond just saying, lift weights and eat protein. Like Nerd Fitness, for instance, they talk about this idea of threading the needle with your nutrition. It's not just about eating a ton, but about eating just enough to fuel that growth without packing on unnecessary fat.
Yeah, because so many people think, oh, I'm bulking up, I just need to eat everything in sight.
Right, and that's where you run into trouble.
You end up with that kind of what do they call it? Skinny fat or something.
Yeah, exactly. You don't want to do that. Finding that balance, though, it can be tough.
It's tough. Do any of the other articles, does Strength Log maybe offer guidance on how to strike that balance?
They do. They actually give a pretty specific recommendation. They recommend a protein intake of 1.4 to 2.2 grams per kilogram of body weight.
Okay, I'm going to need you to...
So to break that down.
To break that down for me, because I'm pounds, not kilograms.
Of course, yeah. So let's say you're around 150 pounds. You'd be aiming for about 95 to 136 grams of protein each day.
Okay, that's a good target.
Yeah.
And that doesn't sound completely unreasonable. I can actually see myself hitting that.
Right. It's definitely doable. But going back to the training aspect, nothing Strong Lifts really emphasizes is this idea of eccentric training. Have you heard of this?
I have, yeah. It's about the slowing down part of the lift, right?
Exactly. Most people focus on the lifting part, the concentric part of the movement. But Strong Lifts, they're saying that controlling the weight on the way down, that's where the magic really happens.
Okay, so if I'm doing, say, a bicep curl, it's not just about curling the weight up. It's about slowly lowering it back down, too.
Precisely. That slow, controlled descent, it actually creates more of those micro tears in your muscles. Yeah. And those tears are what lead to growth, better growth as they repair. Imagine, holding onto the bar during a pull-up.
Oh, man.
For a full 4 seconds as you lower yourself down.
Brutal.
It's tough.
But effective, right?
Super effective.
So we're talking about pushing limits here. What about overtraining? I know Nerd Fitness, they were pretty adamant about, not overdoing it. There are risks there. Right?
Oh, absolutely. And Strong Lifts echoes this as well. They both emphasize just how crucial those rest days are because muscle protein synthesis, which is the actual process of your body, building that new muscle tissue, it happens during recovery, not when you're lifting.
So I can't just go to the gym every single day, twice a day, and expect, amazing results.
You might actually see the opposite.
Okay.
You could hinder your progress.
So listening to our bodies is just as important as pushing them, it sounds like.
It's all about balance, right? We've got that foundation of consistency. We're being smart with our training, incorporating things like eccentric movements, and we're prioritizing recovery. But what about the fuel that powers all of this growth? We've got to talk about nutrition.
Yeah, let's dig into that. We touched on protein briefly, but what else do these articles have to say about fueling those gains? So we're talking about fueling muscle growth. And I'm assuming it's not just about downing protein shakes all day long, right?
No, definitely not. It's about a balanced approach. And Nerd Fitness does a really good job breaking down those key players. Protein, we've got carbohydrates, and they even talk about creatine.
Creatine. Yeah. I always thought that was more for hardcore athletes or bodybuilders.
Yeah.
Not really for someone like me who's just, trying to build some muscle.
Yeah. Yeah. That's a pretty common misconception. And while it can definitely enhance athletic performance, creatine's also really safe and effective for just boosting muscle growth in general. It helps your muscles produce more energy, which means you can push harder in your workouts.
Okay, so creatine's officially on my radar now. What about carbs? I feel like I've heard so many mixed messages about carbs over the years.
It really is all about context. And Nerd Fitness makes a good point about timing your carbs, especially after your workout, because your muscles are primed for nutrient uptake then. So having carbs along with protein can really optimize that recovery and growth.
So it's like giving your muscles exactly what they need right when they need it most.
Exactly. Now, beyond the what, we also need to consider the when. And all three of these articles emphasize the importance of that post-workout window.
That makes sense. So we've got our macronutrients covered. Anything else we should be thinking about when it comes to fueling those gains?
One thing that often gets overlooked, and Strength Log really emphasizes this, is the importance of hydration.
Hydration. You mean just like drinking enough water?
It sounds simple, but it's so crucial. Water plays such a vital role in almost every bodily function, including muscle protein synthesis and nutrient delivery. And even mild dehydration, it can really impact your performance and your recovery.
I guess I do underestimate the power of good old H2O sometimes. So how much water should we be aiming for, especially on those training days?
Strength Log recommends aiming for about a gallon of water per day.
Wow, a gallon.
Yeah, especially on those days when you're really hitting the gym hard.
A gallon a day it is.
Okay.
So we're eating enough protein, we're timing those carbs, prioritizing hydration. I feel like we're covering all the bases here.
Yeah.
But I've got to ask about supplements. There's always so much hype around supplements in the fitness world. Do any of these articles recommend specific supplements for muscle growth? Besides creatine, of course.
You know, they're surprisingly consistent in their message that you should really focus on getting your nutrition right through whole foods first and foremost. Supplements, as the name suggests, they're meant to supplement a healthy diet, not replace it.
So no magic pill for muscle growth? Bummer.
Afraid not. But both Nerd Fitness and Strength Log, they do mention a few other supplements that can be beneficial if you're just not getting enough through your diet, like omega-3 fatty acids, vitamin D. But again, they stress talking to your doctor or a registered dietitian before adding any supplements to your routine.
Yeah, always good to err on the side of caution and get some personalized advice. I do appreciate that these articles aren't just pushing a whole laundry list of crazy expensive supplements.
Exactly. They're all about those sustainable, science-backed strategies. And speaking of sustainable, one thing that really struck me was the emphasis on mindset, which, we haven't really touched on yet.
That's so true. All three articles mention mindset. But I feel like Strong Lifts, they really dove into the mental game of muscle building.
Yeah, they highlighted something really interesting, the importance of finding a training style that you actually enjoy, something that motivates you to show up consistently.
That makes a lot of sense. I know I'm way more likely to stick with something if I'm actually looking forward to it.
Of course. And they talk about exploring different training styles, whether it's powerlifting, bodybuilding, CrossFit, or something else entirely. It's all about finding that sweet spot where you're challenged, but you're also engaged and enjoying the process.
It's about making fitness a sustainable part of your life, not just another chore to check off the to-do list, which, this whole conversation about consistency, building muscle, it sounds like this is a long game, not some get-ripped-quick scheme.
You're picking up what these articles are putting down. It's all about managing expectations, understanding that building muscle, it takes time and dedication and consistent effort.
It's a marathon, not a sprint.
Exactly. And speaking of tracking your progress, all three sources emphasize just how important that is too. Not just for motivation, but to actually make sure that you're constantly challenging yourself.
So actually writing down my workouts, sets, reps, all that.
Exactly. Because seeing how far you've come, it can be so motivating. And it helps you make adjustments to your training and nutrition if you need to.
I'm starting to think I need to up my tracking game for sure.
It can be a game changer. But aside from just tracking those workouts, Strong Lifts also talks about the importance of proper form.
Yes. Form over ego. It's something you hear all the time in the fitness world, but does it really make that much of a difference? I mean, as long as you're lifting the weight, right?
Not quite. Strong Lifts makes a really good point that, having proper form, it's absolutely crucial, not just for maximizing muscle growth, but also for preventing injuries. It's not just about moving that weight from point A to point B. It's about engaging the right muscles and using a full range of motion.
So quality over quantity, making each rep count.
Exactly. And when it comes to those quality movement patterns, there's one final key theme that kind of emerges from all three articles. They all talk about the importance of compound movements.
Compound movements, right. We haven't gotten to those yet. For anyone who's new to this, what exactly are we talking about?
So compound movements, these are exercises that work multiple muscle groups at the same time.
Okay.
Think squats, deadlifts, bench presses, overhead presses, rows.
The big ones.
The big ones, exactly.
Okay, so you're hitting a lot of muscles with just one exercise.
Yeah.
Seems pretty efficient for building muscle quickly.
It is. And not only that, but it also triggers more overall muscle growth and a bigger hormonal response compared to isolation exercises, which only target one muscle group at a time.
So should I ditch the isolation moves altogether and just focus on these compound exercises?
Not necessarily. Isolation exercises can be great for fine-tuning specific muscles or if you're trying to address any imbalances. But when you're looking to build that solid base of muscle compound movements, those should be the stars of the show.
Got it. Compound exercises are like the main course, and then the isolation exercises are like the sides. Speaking of which, I've always been a little intimidated by those big compound lifts, like squats and deadlifts. Any advice for someone who's new to those?
It's understandable to feel that way. They can seem daunting, for sure.
A little bit.
But they are so effective. Just start slow, focus on perfect form. Don't be afraid to work with a trainer, even just for a few sessions to make sure that you're doing them safely.
Right. Safety first.
Right.
Better to be lifting lighter with good form than, risking injury trying to go too heavy too soon.
100%. And don't get discouraged if you're not seeing those huge gains immediately. Because, like we've been saying, building muscle, it's a process.
It's a marathon, not a sprint.
Exactly. Be patient with it, celebrate those small wins along the way, and just remember that everyone's journey is going to be different.
It's about finding what works for you.
Exactly. And I think that's what I really love about all three of these articles. They don't just give you generic advice. They really empower you to understand the why behind the what. So you can go out and create a sustainable plan that fits your individual needs and your goals.
So to kind of wrap things up here, what's the biggest takeaway you want our listeners to walk away with from this deep dive?
I think the biggest takeaway is that building muscle, it's absolutely achievable, but it's about working smarter, not just harder. And these articles, they give you such a fantastic roadmap, but the most important ingredient is you, your dedication, your consistency, your willingness to learn and adapt along the way. That's what's going to ultimately determine your success.
I love that. Well, this has been an awesome deep dive. We covered so much from the science of muscle growth, the importance of nutrition, recovery, to the power of mindset and finding what motivates you.
We busted some myths, explored different perspectives, and hopefully left you feeling empowered to really take control of your muscle building journey.
Exactly. You've got the knowledge. Now go out there and build your best self.